Here we are. Welcome to Tuesday evening / afternoon / Wednesday morning. What am I going to do? I just need to do more mortar, is what I realized. And I still failed to get that reference that I needed, but that's okay. I know what I need to do. I need to look at all the places that have really nice squishy mortar squashing out between the rocks, and I need to do more of that. That's what I've decided I need to do to bring this to 100%. So that's what I'm going to do. That's all there is to it. Hello, Garthor. Yes, we need the squishy quotient raised. More squishification. So can I get this darker? Huh. Why does that make no difference? That's weird. Oh well. 1000%? I don't know about that. That's a lot of squishosity. We like moderation here at Breath of Life Development, even though the that's one of those words I always forget. What is the word like NASA when it's a word made out of other words? Whatever that word is. Breath of Life Development spells out bold. And so you would think that I'd be all about extremes, but I actually think it's bold to be balanced. You have to think harder about that sort of thing. And I think thinking hard is bold in these days, don't you think? No, not a portmanteau. That's when you mix two words together into one. Acronym, that's the one. Thank you. Yeah, I've got a list that I've been keeping since my late 20s of words like that I know exactly what they mean. I know it when I see it. I have no problem remembering it when someone else says it, but it will not come into my brain. I would tell you the other ones, but I literally can't, so yeah. The old brain parts. I had it written down on a sticky, like I had this whole list going. Well, actually, that reminds me, I just opened my documents so I could paste a better description in this video. Yeah, I had them all written down, and then I think I transferred them. The document may be called Words I Always Forget. Yep, there it is. All right, are you ready for this epic list? Oh, it's even alphabetized. Okay, number 1, affectation. You would think I'd remember that since I am covered with affectations. I am practically a walking affectation. Ambiguous. That one, I haven't had so much trouble remembering lately. Ad hominem. Cognitive dissonance. That's like very useful. But yeah, I could describe it. I could explain even psychology behind it and stuff, but can I come up with that actual 2 words when I need it? No. Colloquial, that's another one. Meaning, you know, the common understanding or definition of a word that is often different from the technical or industry understanding of a word, right? What's next? Caveat. This list may also have words that I just can't spell. So caveat is like literally cave eat, but without the extra E. cave, or cave at, I guess you could think. Okay. Dunning-Kruger effect. Sadly, apparently, this has failed to replicate. This was another victim of the replication crisis. So even though it's such a cute theory, it was such a small sample size and so limited in scope, it was not able to replicate. I do think that there is, like, there has to be something to it. Maybe that's just like a cognitive illusion that humans have. But this idea that people who don't understand a thing thinking they are better at it than they actually are, like, everyone has experienced that, right? Everyone. Giphy? What? Oh, you're trying to Giphy something? You can't Giphy here, as far as I know. I would love it if people could Giphy in chat. Oh, what's up? Epicurean. All right, so this is the idea of a philosophy about living your best life by indulging in the moment, or at least that's getting back to colloquial. That's the colloquial understanding of that philosophical precept. It is actually much more complicated than that and nuanced and sensible. It is not the same as simply doing whatever you want whenever you want. The Epicurus was understood to be the founder of this ideology or philosophy, and he understood very well that, like, if all you want to do is eat candy all day and you literally just eat candy all day, you're actually going to suffer more in the long run than if you are sensible and balanced about what it is you're doing. Yeah, so Epicurean, can't remember that one. Libertarian, interesting. That's true. Yeah, I can't, like, when I'm trying to think of the third party of the U.S., you know, more or less, I can't come up with a word. I know lots of libertarians. I used to have very strong libertarian leanings myself, but it's a word that will not come to my brain when I'm requesting it. Paul Reedy, hello. You think it's looking awesome? Thank you, thank you. All right, next on the list, milieu. Milieu being the world in which a story takes place, or the context or environment in which a person is raised or an ideology evolves. It's just a fancy, like, French word for context, I guess, like the broader context. In writing, it's usually used to you know, the world building, more or less, like, what is this world that you've created? What is the milieu? Spelled M-I-L-I-E-U because it's French and they just like to roll that way. Next up is nostalgia. That's an interesting one. I'm trying to think if that one still haunts me. I don't remember losing that one recently. But I do remember times where, well, not specific times, but I do remember a frustration around that word, and it is probably because of the reason it's on this list. I've forgotten, I can't call it up enough that it ends up on a list. Next is paradox. What a weird one. Like, paradox is a fantastic concept and phrase. Well, sorry, it's not a phrase. It's used in many phrases, especially in my background of theology and philosophy. Paradoxes abound. And yes, the plural of paradox is paradoxes. I regret to inform you all. Very boring, I know. What's next on the list? Perennial. This is a perennial problem for me. The technical definition of perennial being a thing that lasts all year, or comes back in the spring, often used for plants. You have your perennials and your seasonals. I don't know what the antithesis of perennial is. But, you know, the flowers, you plant them, and then in the fall they die, and they ain't never coming back. You just got to plant new ones next year. Perennials will come back. But, yeah, used in philosophy, politics, and pretty much anything in the humanities, to indicate something that is just always around. Kind of like paradoxes. There are perennial paradoxes, and there are probably local, like spatially or, what's the fancy word for time? Timely located, chronologically located paradoxes that get resolved when there is more understanding. Like, you can have apparent paradoxes, and the only reason it's a paradox is because you are ignorant of something or another, right? This is something that religions lean on quite heavily because, you know, it's the whole God of gaps thing, right? Like, well, you can't explain how life suddenly sprang into being from, you know, basic chemical components, therefore God. And then other paradoxes, like in my Christian tradition, there's the Trinity. How do you explain that God is a Father and also the Son and also this other thing called the Holy Spirit all at once, but they're also all distinct? It's a paradox. We just can't understand it because we are ignorant of whatever the underlying mechanism that makes logical sense of it, right? Now, I have philosophical problems with paradoxes, which is it's not quite a slippery slope argument, but it's an objection on the grounds that if you allow a paradox to be a part of your toolkit for reasoning, you then have no ground to reject all the other paradoxes that any other thought system, philosophy, theology, whatever, throws at you, because you can't say things that don't make sense are not allowed, right? I have a problem with that. Not that the concept of the paradox as a thing that we simply can't understand yet, but it does actually make sense. Like, I agree with that in conceptually. I mean, the history of science is full of things that seem to be paradoxes until we figured other stuff out, and then they were no longer paradoxes. However, theology doesn't seem to have that same adjudicating power throughout time. We seem to have been stuck on the same paradoxes, and they maybe could be because of the nature of the topic, right? Temporal. I like temporal better than, what was I going? Chronological? I can't remember what I said. Anyway, yeah, perennial is a word that I grasp for it, and my brain just says no. Next on the list. Oh, we're already in the P's. There can't be that many. Oh, it turns out there's like 100 P's. Interesting. Apparently the P part of my brain is damaged. Permutation. That's a word I don't use often, so I'm surprised that it's on this list. Why would I need to reach for the word permutation frequently? I mean, granted, why would I need to reach for almost any of these words on a regular basis? Because I'm a sesquipedalian, that's why. Yeah, I don't know. Permutation. Premise. That one I feel like I've practiced my way out of. I don't recall running into a cognitive wall when trying to summon that word anytime recently. It doesn't ring a bell as far as like, oh yeah, that's a frustrating one. In programming, you would use a permutation? Yeah. A sesquipedalian is a person who uses overly large words. I'm sure I've explained this to you before. I have two favorite words, and the two favorite words are the word that most aesthetically represents its meaning, and the one that least aesthetically represents its meaning. And so, sesquipedalian is my favorite because it absolutely means exactly what it should mean. Because only a sesquipedalian would actually say it, would actually know it, and it's only going to cause confusion. There's no reason to ever use that word. Don't use that word. But it's too hilarious for me not to use. So I have to use it because it's one of my favorites. And maybe its uselessness is part of its charm. And then the other one is pulchritude. Can you guess what pulchritude means? Remember, it is the most opposite of what it sounds like. All right, give upper. It means beautiful. To be pulchritudinous is to be beautiful. I think this rock wall is pulchritudinous. I don't have problems remembering my two favorite words. I can always bring sesquipedalian and pulchritude up when I need them. Oh, thank you, Garthar. Okay, next on the agenda, permutation, premise, procedural. I love procedural levels and roguelikes. I read a book that heavily influenced me in 2002 or 3 about procedural game worlds and kind of the history of them going back to the 70s and the promise of them going into the future. And then I wrote up a big old design document after I got laid off and tried to get my programmer friend who was laid off at the same time to help me build this game that was based on a completely procedural world.
Honey?
Would have been so ahead of its time. Yeah.
So my blood pressure
Mm-hmm.
was
1 million.
really high. This is like bad high.
So it was 130 at the hospital, right?
I thought it was 107.
I thought you told me 130. Or was that when
That was
you...
my heart rate.
Oh, sorry.
Also bad.
I get those two mixed up all the time. Sorry.
But, well, a blood pressure is 2 numbers. So that's how you know it's different. So my blood pressure was 159 over something, and the machine was like, beep, 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 beep. And we were like, whoa, that's weird. But my heart rate was low. So it's weird to have a low heart rate.
And high pressure.
Yeah, you're like, how is that happening? So it's
Your
like,
blood's
it's
just
my
very thick?
my arteries are constricting.
Is that something that could happen with...
So when I was sick on Saturday, my eyes were blurry. That's why I didn't realize what my heart rate was at.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, so we did, and I was talking and stuff, but normally when I'm talking, it gives like a false high. Like I just got up, walked to the room, sit in the chair, blood pressure, right? And so my heart rate will be like 114, so high for me, but that's still like normal low.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, I was like, what the heck? She's like, let's give it a few minutes, and we'll do like a deep inhale and slow exhale, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it only went down to 130 over something.
Okay.
It's still high. That's still pretty, I mean, it's still like in the high normal.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like that really, but it wasn't pissing off the machine. But that's way weird for me. Well, the same thing happened even after. So normally after my infusion, my blood pressure goes really low, like 90s or 80s over 60, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was high again. It was like 140 something. And we're like, what the? But my pulse again was like 57. So we did like deep breath, slow exhale. It went down, but only to like the 130s again. Still pulse was like 57. And I didn't go to Target because I just feel a little off. I don't know what it is, but I don't really want to like collapse and be alone or something.
Yeah.
And so I stopped by the Bartell's thing on the corner to just go get a blood pressure cuff. They had one for 80 cents. I really wish we knew where mine went, but it must be forever lost. So, yeah, anyways, so I don't know, I guess I maybe could go on Amazon and just order one to get here.
I mean, if you need it tonight, we can just go grab you one.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a lot to get at Target.
Hi, Jean.
Anyways.
I was going to go to industry night tonight.
Oh, that's right. Okay. And then my mom texted me that, what time is your thing?
7.
It's 5:55.
Yeah, I was going to go in about 45 minutes, but
we don't have
we could go now.
I don't, because, you know, Target's kind of, I mean, it's traffic. That's not going to get you there in time.
Garthor, you should go to industry night tonight. East Side Industry Night at Zulu's in Bothell.
It's like the corner. It's close to Woodinville. Maybe on your way home, you could swing by that Target. Although, have fun trying to find it. And also, it'll be best to do is ask an associate, because if they have one, it's going to be locked probably behind a thing.
Why do you think Target's the best place for it?
They probably have a few different ones. I think pharmacy is going to carry one, and it's going to be an expensive one. Well, they're limited space.
Okay.
But either way, they tend to be locked behind a case. So you might as well just ask an associate.
Yeah.
Also, right before I left, my mom texted me and said she has dad at the hospital.
Yeah, of course.
So I need to, he's feeling bad, and I really wish we knew what that meant.
Yeah.
But I feel bad too, and I don't know what to say to people. I don't know what it means. But I think something is off with me. This isn't right, you know?
Great. Garthor says Mrs. Thor has one heart or blood pressure thing.
Yeah, we have one, but I cannot find it. It, like, I think it might have, I mean, I know you looked, but I think it must have been fallen inside the old couch and when they took it away or something.
I really don't think, I mean, I thoroughly looked in there.
But it's annoying because it was $100. It's a great one. Yeah. And it hooks up to, like, my watch and all that stuff. But now we just need, it's going to be probably around $50 to $60. And just, I don't really care. I just want one. But it needs to make sure that it doesn't say something for, like, big people, because I'm a small people.
Yeah, I've noticed you are kind of a small people.
I have a smaller arm probably than...
Linda says hi to us too.
Oh, hi. Where is... Cannot find... Oh, there it is. But I got hydration fluids. Great talk with Abby because she's fun. I was her last patient.
Nice.
Watching Mia Cole videos. Oh my gosh. I was watching, I think, her latest one. I forget what it is now, what it's called, but
she's fun.
The first, like, few seconds, you just start laughing. It's so good. So within, before it even hits the 3-minute mark, laughing so much. Laughy, laughy, laughy. She's so freaking smart, man.
Yeah, smart kids.
She was doing?
What was she doing?
So dumb, but it was funny because you know it's not going to work out. And it like, Erickson did the same thing to me. Like, he tried to write something upside down on my planner, and it was really bad, right? So it's just funny because you know what we're doing, but we're like, I'm gonna try, and then you're always so surprised that your brain can't just do it because it doesn't seem that hard, you know? Like, I'm writing upside down and backwards, but it should be fine. Like, I know what it looks like. I know what it's gonna feel like. Like, come on.
You can read it upside down. Why can't you write it?
Yeah, it just looks so bad. So she has this whiteboard and she's trying to draw, like, if you spend this much time on, you know, the internet versus blah blah blah, and do a chart, and it's like, and she's upside down writing like this, and it's so, yeah, it's funny.
Calm down.
Yeah, like what?
Mind your blood
So
pressure.
blurry vision is a sign of like high blood pressure, like hyper whatever. So I'm a little worried that something is going on in my heart,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's causing, like, whether it's an infection or whatever, and that's what's causing blah blah blah. Like if it's sepsis, it would go, your blood pressure would tank,
Right.
but mine's increased high, and mine is never this high.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the day that I was sick, I was feeling a little confused. I kept repeating to the nurses, and I was like, wait. It felt like slippery in my brain. I was like, wait, did I say that? But I couldn't really recall it. Normally, you can kind of recall.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, it's okay. And I was like, what is
Is
going
it
on?
though?
So there was like, I want to say confusion, but it was something a little, it felt weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like my thoughts weren't stucking. Turducken.
No stucking
Turstucken.
their thoughts.
Stuffing. But I had these thoughts so often. But yeah, why like high blood pressure? And what's, you know, what they saw at the hospital was right after, like 2 hours after I took my heart med. So the beta blocker would have dropped everything lower.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Your vitals look fine. I don't know why you need fluids.
That
So
dog.
stupid. Like, it's like, Abby's like, this is what you say. I have a chronic condition that doesn't allow, you know, like prevents hydration and blood volume.
Not enough for some people.
Yeah, she's just like, that's ridiculous. I was like, oh, but the guy who was running a marathon, I bet he got fluids. No problemo. And I did have labs come back weird. It wasn't even that, yeah, maybe they didn't say I was dehydrated, but she's like, dehydrated, they're looking at electrolytes. That doesn't quite mean that someone doesn't have enough blood volume, you know?
It's like an indicator, not a.
Yeah, it can be an indicator, but it's like those are minerals and whatever, you know? She's like, that doesn't mean everything. And so, yeah. This almost looks like a heart.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous. Am I an artiste now? I'm a sculptor
I think so.
of my bandage from an IV placement.
Mm-hmm.
Abby saw these and she's like, oh man.
What is Fubar Garthor? Is that a YouTube channel?
The shed door is open. Did you mean for it to be open?
I was pulling stuff in and out of there, and I had the humidifier
Okay.
draining, and then I totally forgot about it. So thanks for the reminder.
Can I go close it or?
Yeah, you'll have to put the humidifier back in. It's already plugged in. Just put the little water cap in on the bottom, and I think the power button on the top, you have to press that, and it should start humming. And the light. Don't forget there's a light. Always setting Heather to work. Go do your chores, Heather. Yeah, these spots where the mortar actually sticks out further than the little like rocks that are inset. I don't know why I'm surprised by it, but surprisingly seems effective at getting across what I'm hoping this wall ends up looking like. Hey, tomorrow, kiddo. What's going on at industry night? Well, it's gonna be the first time in like 3.5 years that I've ever gone. So, you know, it's a Josh event. You get to see Josh in the man flesh. I don't know what more you need than that. Plus, you know, it's a gaming pub type place. You get to have beer and maybe play a game and chat with industry folk. And they'll just let you do it. It's a Netflix show with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay. Yeah, people are kind of a necessary evil you have to deal with. I was hoping to like be outside most of the time. I was hoping they'd have like an outside area. If they don't, I won't be hanging out too long. Just mask up and be annoying and then leave. But yeah, I need to. I always want to ignore the networking part of having a career because I hate it, but also it's foolish to ignore it. Pokemon Go Spotlight Hour. What? Okay, let's keep burning through our list here. We're still on the P's. What do we do? Permutation, premise, procedural, propaganda. Really? Yeah, okay. Yeah. That is another word that I always lose. Not always, but frequently enough to be frustrated by it. Wait a minute. Wait, LNOPQR. Okay, yeah. Well, what my biggest nemesis is in the R's. I can't wait to get there and be extra upset by what a mundane, weird word that just can't come into my brain there is. Okay, Q. That must be a spelling one, not a unable to remember one. As in like the British way of saying a line of people. A Q. Q. E. U-E, the dumbest spelled word. Every single letter is silent, except for the first one. Yep, you might as well just keep adding U's and E's after it as much as you want. Go for it, no one cares. Okay, now for R. Reconcile. This one frustrates me a lot because it is actually a really helpful word to be able to say when you want to talk about two conflicting or apparently conflicting issues, well, like paradox. Maybe the fact that paradox and reconcile are both on this list say something deep about my psychology. because I do want to reconcile all paradoxes. I think most people do, honestly. When a paradox is presented, most people want to go into puzzle solving mode and figure it out. Unless doing so endangers some other deeper held belief. But yeah, that is, reconcile is a really mundane word that, you know, a lot of the words on this list are kind of like, you know, 10-cent words that when you say them, people assume you're trying to show off or whatever. And so it's not a huge deal when you can't remember them. Reconcile is not like that. All right, have fun in Spotlight Hour. Feel free to stop by Zulu's in Bothell in 1 hour. Next word on the list, relativism. Huh. Well, you don't actually have to have the beer there. You could just swing by and have overpriced French fries and say hi. But yeah, I respect whatever decision you make on the matter. I would be slightly more cajoling and coercive if I was convinced I would be there for a long time, but since I don't even know what the situation's going to be, I will not cajole nor coerce. Good luck capturing them Pokemans. I'm trying to look for all the spots where it's kind of unclear where the rocks are actually separated and putting a nice big old chunky hunk of mortar between them. You can't make French fries at home. You shut up. The only other person I know who's going to be there is Sean Sharp, ArenaNet expat. You take the potato, you cut the potato, you fry the potato, you eat the potato. Put it in the oven. That's not a real French fry. You cannot convince me that any French fry you put in an oven is a real French fry. Come on. That's a baked sliver of potato. Yeah, you have to have a deep fryer at home to make it work. And what kind of maniac has a deep fryer at home? I have an air fryer that like makes okay. They're okay. But you can't get the same thing as like deep fried restaurant fries at home. Sorry, you just can't. And if you say you can, you're a liar. You're a filthy liar. And I want nothing to do with your lies. Air fryer is an oven? Can you fry food in an oven? I guess if it's in a vat of oil and it gets hot enough, it is indeed frying, right? Mini overpriced oven. All right. I'll let you die on that hill. I mean, I won't die on that hill, so I formally surrender that hill and cede it in perpetuity to you and your offspring for all time henceforth and furthermore. Did we just figure out how to solve peace in the Middle East and in the Ukraine-Russian war? Is that what we just did here? So conflicted in these places where the edge of the rock rises up really nicely, and I don't want to obliterate that, but I also need to continue the big mush of mortar that's needs to be squeezing between these rocks. If I were to start over, I kind of feel like I would just start with like a bunch of blobs and then like carve rocks between the mortar joints. That would probably be easier. I mean, I guess the nice thing in theory about an air fryer is the energy savings. Like, if you're just gonna cook a little thing, you know, don't heat up your. And this is probably a fairly uniquely American problem because all our appliances are 5 times bigger than everywhere else in the world. But like, our oven is huge. I don't even know what it is. It's probably like 10 square feet in there, or not square, cubic, 10 cubic feet in there. And I feel guilty every time I'm just like, oh, I want to heat up some French bread. Let me turn the oven on for 15 minutes and get it up to 350 degrees. So I could melt butter onto my bread. Normal Australia size. I don't know how, like, Australia is a big spread out place. So I feel like it should have appliances and homes the size of the United States. But I've never been there, so I can't confirm or deny. The only inside of a house I've seen is from I Did a Things videos. And I don't know how representative his house is. Sadly, my favorite band is from Adelaide, and they've never invited me over just to hang out and paid for my ticket to come to their house and just hang out. I don't know why they're so rude, but maybe it's just an Australian thing. Is it normal for you Australians not to invite people over from the States and pay for them to fly over and hang out at your house? Kind of surprised I blew through all that. Yeah, that's pretty normal for Australians. Man, no wonder you guys have such a bad reputation. That's why Mad Max starts in Australia, because you guys don't invite anyone over. That's where it went. All right, next up on the list after relativism is solipsism, another general philosophical term. The solipsists' argument is that because they can't prove that any other minds actually exist, it's quite possible that they are the only mind that exists, and all other apparent people are simply figments of the one imagination of the one being that exists. That being myself, because I'm the one thinking, and the only one I can prove is a sentient, real thing. Now, I presented the soft form of the argument. There is, of course, the hard form, which is whoever's saying it's saying it is absolutely true that I am the only sentient entity that exists. I don't know how many people would actually take that stance. I'm sure some weirdos would, but it's more interesting as a philosophical experiment to try to puzzle out than it is as an actual, you know, philosophical framework for life. Often people who are very selfish or cruel, a 10-cent word you can use to describe them and sound smart when you're describing them is to call them solipsistic. But the problem with that description is that it imbues or imposes a philosophical framework of thought onto actions that are much easier to explain by simply saying, no, they're just selfish. They may be acting like they're the only person that exists and the only person that matters, but there are better descriptors for that than solipsistic. Exactly. I mean, the problem with that one is that, getting back to the word colloquial, a lot of times people will use medical diagnoses colloquially, like in the example of people who say they're so OCD when they don't actually have any dysfunction. They're just fastidious people who get caught up on details or want to complete things that they've started. Whereas people who actually have OCD are suffering significantly, and so it's pretty rude to just use it offhandedly as a reference to a pretty normal personality tendency. Diminishes the suffering and work that people with actual OCD have to deal with. But yeah, narcissist is another one in that same category where you need to be diagnosed for that to have any real meaning. But again, colloquially, just means someone who's incredibly selfish and only cares about themselves and doesn't care about sacrificing other people to get what they want, right? Another way to put that is they're just an a-hole. A meaning apple, of course. They're just an apple core. One thing I do think is a more reasonable thing for a lay person to accuse, to explain someone else's bad behavior would be that they're displaying dark triad personality tendencies, which I believe is narcissism. Oh crap! What are the other ones? Psychopathy and now this is going to bother me. You've had actual OCD? Then you know what it is of which I speak. Long trout, you've got that a couple other things. Have you been diagnosed? Let's see. Dark triad. Narcissism, psychopathy. Oh, Machiavellianism. That's the other one. Okay. So psychopathy is impulsive, emotional, cold, remorseless. Example, body language, inappropriate or lack of emotional expression. Okay. Narcissism is grandiosity, perceived superiority and entitlement. Example of body language of that is the first person pronouns focus on the self in conversation. Machiavellianism is manipulative, self-interested, domineering. Example body language is dominant, expansive posture. That's clearly from a body language reading website, which that is a bunch of pseudoscience bunk as well. But it did get me the 3 traits I was looking for. Self-diagnosed? Okay. As long as you're thinking about it more than just being like, oh, I like to make sure I turn off the lights before I leave the house, or if I start reading a book, I always finish it no matter what. Like, that does not count as OCD. If you're washing your hands 100 times a day and it's causing your skin to blister and fall off, that's real OCD. If you have to turn a light on and off 30 times whenever you enter a room, that's real OCD. Not an expansive or complete list, but examples. Depersonalized people in PD. Yeah, well, I guess that kind of gets into solipsism, huh? Not as a coherent philosophical stance, but just as a matter of feeling about other people, right? When you leave the room, they're not even there, don't even matter. Machiavellianism reminds me of maximalism, which reminds me of seeing this armor in Sydney Powerhouse Museum, all dressed in armor and putting on a melee for the opening, and to walk in a certain pattern, or I believe my family would die. Oh wow, that's rough. Well, thank you, Longtrout. Thank you for your best behavior. Although that's one of those paradoxes where if you stayed up front that you are a troll and then try to not be a troll, how do you reconcile that paradox? Haha, I've used 2 of my words that I always forget. The psych injury occurs during the phase of development of object permanence. Wouldn't that have manifestations in other areas of your life as well? Like, not just as it relates to persons, but other things. Repair flint houses, yes. I seem to remember that president. I don't know. What was his name? Trousers? No. Turnip? I think it was maybe Turnip. But yeah, classic displays of a lot of dark triad tendencies there. Always hard to tell with a public figure because you don't know how much is persona, crafted to appeal to a particular demographic as opposed to a legitimate expression of themselves. It's the problem with reality TV. You know, it's like, who are these people who are, you know, they want to be perceived a certain way when the camera's on them? How much is that really like them, I wonder? I don't wonder too much because I don't watch much of it because I find it incredibly grating and annoying to see people pandering to a camera and trying to be something that they probably aren't. Although I imagine there's probably an archetype or, you know, some percentage of people on reality shows who are like very legitimately exactly what you see on the screen. But I think that would be hard because the medium has so many particular demands and dictates. I mean, just the very act of editing, you know, what people say and the angles that they're, you know, being seen from, etc. Like everything creates some sort of abstracted layer of interpretation. Pantsman? Was that his name? Wait. Yeah, Pantsman. Yeah, I think the media slant is probably a little less powerful these days since there is no longer the media. There's just a bunch of different bubbles of worldview reinforcing, preaching to the choir entities. There's hardly ever any more a media take on any given person or subject, it seems. I had some kind of texturing tool, but what was it? Let me see if this will work. Yeah, I really think that is like the biggest threat to the continuation of the human species, is the lack of epistemological coherence or consensus around an epistemology. You know, everyone uses the word truth. Everyone wants to say, well, I just I support the truth. Whatever the truth is, that's what I believe. And then everyone uses different methods for gaining that truth and all the normal cognitive biases that go with dismissing evidence to the contrary because it's coming from a source that you disagree with, and you've been provided lots of evidence. It doesn't really matter how good or bad the evidence is, but you've been provided with plenty of evidence, enough for your brain to feel satisfied to dismiss anything that comes from a different direction that does not conform to your pre-existing biases. And we're trapped in this information environment, and especially now that AI is coming out, making it just so incredibly easy to fake virtually anything. Like, that's just exacerbating the problem, and it's going to make it so no one is going to believe any evidence from anywhere that that disconfirms their biases. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. We've got some interesting years ahead of us. You need to make rocks? Okay. As normal for the spider is chaos for the fly. I've never heard that. I like that. I must have, maybe there's a texture stamp I was using. Let's look at my texture stamp box. Charles Adams. Oh, sorry, that was very loud. I don't know who Charles Adams is off the top of my head. Who's Charles Adams? And why should I believe anything he says about spiders or flies? Yeah, I could use little pokey pokies. Oh. Maybe that. That might be what I need. Delicious Alicius. Thanks for popping in. Thanks for saying hi. I do not freelance generally. My day job is working for a video game studio, and evenings and weekends I work on my own, trying to build a franchise, trying to make like the next Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. That's my big dream. And I've got all sorts of wacky ideas about how I could maybe pull that off. I mean, chance is still like 0.0000000000001% chance, but I don't care. I enjoy trying. (1912 to 1988), American cartoonist known for his darkly humorous and macabre characters. Signing the cartoon as Chase Adams. Some of his recurring characters became known as the Addams Family. Oh, okay, okay, yeah. I felt like I had heard the name before, but now that two and two have been put together, I get it. I get it. Morticia says that quote. Okay. Yeah, it's one thing to say truth is relative, and it's another thing to then define truth within that context, right? Because, you know, I would say that there are perceptions that are relative, perceptions on the truth, and realities that people have to deal with. But that doesn't mean there's not an underlying universal truth that exists that we're all perceiving from different angles. You know, you might have to go all the way back to chemistry or math to access that truth, at which point you've abstracted stuff so far away from experience that it's, you know, almost pointless to bicker about. But I think you can stay higher level than that. You know, I still think that science has been our best, most successful project towards finding, you know, what is true about the world and what is not. Flawed because it is human and it relies on human institutions and such, but the process of science, the philosophy of the scientific method, I think is the best we've concocted so far. Your significant other is a mathematician. Axioms are true. Yeah, I mean, I could throw some Wittgenstein at that, but in my heart wouldn't be in it. From a certain perspective, the rock is real. Right, and here's an example of where these things can both be true. Like, I made the original of this by taking bits of coal and chopping them up and shaping them how I wanted them, and then mortaring them into place. And then I made a mold of that, a rubber mold. Was it rubber? Yeah. And then pressed clay into that, pulled it out. And so this is clay, a clay cast of rocks. And so are they real rocks? It is a cast made from a mold of real rocks. What I'm holding in my hands is a polymer, well, it's not unsalted roasted whole cashews. It is freeform air, which is an epoxy clay. But science can hold both of these truths simultaneously, right? It can posit a history to the mold, and it can do the chemical breakdown and analysis of what it is, and it could also speak to the human perception of perceiving real rocks. Things get more philosophically complicated, though, when you look at these rocks and you say, well, is that a real rock? And no, this is carved out of XPS foam and then molded and cast in freeform air and then sculpted on some more. And then like this little pile of rocks, this is 100% hand sculpted. Same with one of these. Right, and so they definitely feel like rocks, but they are rocks made in such a way that you can tile them in a way that you can't tile most natural rocks. And that's what makes them into potentially an interesting product. Epoxy, technically fossils? Don't think so. I don't think so. Fizz, you're late. I'm actually late too because I need to go soon. I'm going to go to my first networking event that I've been to in over 3 years. I hate it so much. All right, any other places where the rocks are really ambiguous, where one rock ends and the mortar begins? I'm going to East Side Industry Night, which a guy I used to work with coordinates. He used to be an art lead on Guild Wars 1. He's been in the industry since like the 80s, I want to say. He's a recruiter now, and so he does these networking events, coordinates them. It's just going to be at like one of those gaming pub places, board games and beer type of thing. Yeah, this is the special sauce, this little brush right here. Twitch has deleted. It wants to delete everyone. What? No, I haven't heard that. Twitch wants to delete everyone? Why does it want to do that? Like the whole world? Has Twitch become a James Bond villain? Oh, sponsorships. Well, it's a good thing no one wants to sponsor me. So like games that pay streamers to play their game? Is that the kind of sponsorship you mean? I can't imagine that's going to go over well with all these huge streamers who make millions of dollars a year because companies are forced to pay them to pretend to like their games. Hey, Becca Ross. I'm not taking your humor for granted. I think it's the schist. I also think it's nice. Boy, that one really relies on spelling. Unless it's actually pronounced good-nice, but I don't think it is. Rob Fish, thank you. Thank you so much. Sedimentary, dear Watson. I'll take it. I'll take it and I'll like it. Oh, you're doing accounting? Art does sound a lot more fun than accounting, I have to say. Even though they both start with the letter A, you'd think they would be like somewhere close on the fun scale, but what else is fun that starts with A? Assessing? No. Adjudicating? Not usually. Acclimating? Acerbic jokes. Those are pretty fun. I mean, depending on your personality. I guess acerbic humor sometimes hurts people's feelings, and I really don't like it when that happens. Acrobatics. That could be fun. Athabascans, the indigenous tribe in Alaska. I know 2 Athabascans. One of them was pretty fun. Some people find accounting fun, really? Wow. Guess it takes all kinds, huh? But don't think I'm not silently judging them. Whoopsie, I smushied my smush a little too smushily. prefer art over anything else. Oh, wow. Not just things that start with the letter A, but like all things? Like, what about air? Air starts with the letter A. I may not actively enjoy it as much as art, but when I lack it, then it becomes really important to me. Same with amino acids. And what about androgyny? Like, we need our David Bowies of the world. Anderson Cooper? Yeah, we could probably live without him. Artichokes? No! Stop it. No artichoke. Hang on.
It was after 7, right?
Yep. Trying to get this process done.
Is Garthor going?
I don't think so.
Has he ever been?
Mm-mm.
Wing wasn't at that meeting? Or at lunch?
Mm-mm.
Is it just because he's on a mostly completely different project?
Yeah.
Junko with Bone Leg.
Bone leg Junko. What about him?
He's there. That's so cute.
Cute little bone leg. Little peg leg birdie.
She's all by herself today and yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Wonder why that is.
Well, if she dies, it's not gonna be because of that. She's been alive since winter.
Yeah.
Maybe she was born with it. Maybe. Maybe it's a deformed. So I've only had a few pretzels, and my body's like, no eat or drink. Thank you.
You probably need to do those things though.
What?
I was just talking about how important amino acids are. You need to eat and drink in order to generate more of them.
Oh. Yeah, they have supplements. Like L-thiamine or whatever is what you need to make dopamine. So for ADHD.
What did you call me?
But for ADHD, you could take, I think it's L-thiamine or whatever, supplements. Because if dopamine, if it's mainly that you're missing the amino acid for the building block, then that can help, right? It could be a different thing, like you don't have the receptors or whatever, a billion other reasons why along the chain. Woo!
Careful.
Woo! Now I'm drunk.
Okay. Probably didn't get all of the places where I want squishy squish, but also I think it's okay to not have all the places have the squishy squish because, you know, this is hodgepodge together, hodgepodged. Much like ant keeping. trying to think of a way to combine ant keeping and archery now. What if you had little arrow tips, but the arrow tips were like in a little enclosed ant farm in each arrow tip? Okay. I'm gonna put that there, and now I'm gonna go and try to be a normal human who networks with other normal humans. Wish me luck, everyone. It's not my strong suit, but sometimes you just gotta do these things. Ants who are doing archery, that sounds hard. It's hard to imagine the physics. How do you get a spring that small? Anyway, we'll catch you on Twitch tomorrow if you're a Twitch type person. If not, we'll see you on another time. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Have a good night.